Stay tuned.
George Poveromo's World of Saltwater Fishing, celebrating 21 years of fishing television excellence. Big fish don't stand a
Buenas noches, Latinoamérica, Puerto Rico y el Caribe. Este es tu webcast contra viento y marea, traído a ustedes por Asco, con la mejor variedad en productos de pesca y marinos. Así que saluditos a todos los que se están conectando por ahí, por las redes sociales ya, nuestras páginas Pesca, Playa y Ambiente, Adrenalina Náutica, Vela Nativa de Puerto Rico y Brisa. Conmigo, el MVP de la playa y el ambiente, Israel Umpier.
¿Cómo estamos, Ricky? Saludos.
¿Cómo estamos, Israel? ¿Todo bien?
Todo bien. Hace tiempo que no nos veíamos. Yo creo que ya vamos por un mes más o menos que no hacíamos el programita. Mucho trabajo que hemos estado, de trabajo oficial, así que pues lamentamos no haber podido estar este tiempito, pero nuevamente a la carga y con unos invitados de honor aquí que tenemos hoy.
Eso es así que cuéntame un poquito qué es lo que vamos a tener hoy.
Pues mira, hoy tenemos a George Poveromo de una leyenda, otra leyenda más, porque tuvimos a Flip Palot en la ocasión anterior, el último programa que tuvimos, estuvo muy bueno, que se nos cortó, así que ahí debemos el final de ese programa, que estaba corriendo muy chévere. Ahora pues estamos con George Poveromo, lleva sobre 20 años haciendo programas de televisión, enseñando e inspirando a la gente a pescar. Una de las personas con la que yo crecí viendo sus programas y que me motivó a entrar al mundo de la pesca. Tiene unos seminarios, él escribe en revistas, una leyenda, toda una leyenda en el deporte de la pesca. Así que para nosotros es un honor tenerlo aquí en el programa de hoy. Así que la entrevista en inglés de nuevo.
Totalmente en inglés.
Así que pues vamos a entrarle al difícil nuevamente, pero lo hacemos con mucho cariño y con mucho esfuerzo, así que si se nos traba la lengua en una que otra ocasión, pues
saludos a todos los que se están conectando y esperemos se disfruten esta entrevista que va a estar realizando nuestro compañero Israel Umpier. Así que, ¿estás listo, Isra?
Vamos para adelante.
Preámbulo, por aquí le presentamos a George Poveromo.
Hello, George. How are you?
I'm fine. How's everybody?
Fine. Looking forward to this interview. You are one of my idols. I grew up seeing your TV shows every weekend. So for me, it's a great honor to have you here on our webcast. And I think it's the first time you are being interviewed for a program in Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I'm actually very honored to be here too.
Okay, that's nice for me. Look what I got here.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's signed by George. So I've been following through all the boat shows, and I've been talking to you. So for me, it's a great honor to have you here and the opportunity to interview such a great legend in the TV business and the fishing show community. You have been doing your program for how long, George?
We're actually out shooting now for a 2022 season, which would make 22 years on national television now.
Wow, 22 years uninterrupted?
22 years. That sort of creeped up really fast, but we've been doing it that long.
Well, how did it all started? How did you start in TV?
Well, how that started, it was a progression. I had come to work with Saltwater Sportsman magazine in 1983 as an editor, pretty much out of college. I've always fished. And then through a couple mutual friends, I met the editors with Saltwater Sportsman and a position opened up. And I'm still with them as a columnist and a feature writer. I've been with them in 1983. And then in 1988, we started the Saltwater Sportsman National Seminar Series, which is the nation's longest running and most popular recreational educational seminar of its kind. And that, believe it or not, goes into year number 35
wow.
in 2022. So as I progressed with my writings in Saltwater Sportsman and with the seminar series, I said the only other thing that I would like to do career-wise was to come out with a TV show, a national TV show, because the ones that I was watching, growing up, they really didn't teach you anything. There was about two guys in a boat talking about how pretty a fish would look, and they were really boring shows. And I thought there was an opportunity for an educational saltwater show that would combine some good how-to, some good conservation, and some good entertainment. So I had shot a pilot for the show, and we sent it up to two networks at the time. It was ESPN and TNN. And ESPN picked it up a week after I'd sent it in, and that started the television series. So it really started, in my mind, as a progression to what I was doing with my career. Like I said, I'm still with Saltwater Sportsman, and the seminar series, still with the Saltwater Sportsman seminar series, and the television. So that was something I just felt that I had to do career-wise to come out with a show where I felt there was a void in a good quality saltwater show.
And you mentioned that your program, you gave people the educational part, and that was one of the things that I enjoy most of your programs, because it brings you the educational part and the conservation and also gastronomic, because you are always eating up at some restaurants, and also you teach people what kind of gears you are using, what type of bait, and everything about the condition of the sea, what to look for. So that's been a great part of the program that I enjoy pretty much, and that's something unique about your program. So that's what's most important about it. So,
well, I appreciate that, and that was the goal. Was that if we were, say, doing a dolphin or mahi show in the Keys or out of Miami, that somebody in a mid-Atlantic state or Northeast state or Gulf of Mexico state or in Puerto Rico who fish for dolphin, they might not be fishing for it out of Miami, but they're going to watch our techniques. And I'm going to explain the techniques that we're doing at that particular time, so they could relate to that and saying, look what George is doing in this particular instance. We should try this when we go out dolphin fishing. So that was the goal, to showcase some techniques and tactics that people could use for that particular species wherever they fish, and also talk a little bit about the tackle that we're using and what we're doing. So hopefully people have an option. They could duplicate some of the stuff that we're doing, and it would be very helpful to them.
So, and that's the same approach you gave to in your seminars, because you have to go. I think you gave the seminars also the U.S., continental U.S., and each state has his own variety of game fish and his own variations of kind of fishing. So I don't know if you have fish in every state, coastal state of the U.S., but each state has its own variety and his own needs. So that's the same approach you gave about the techniques, and you could apply everywhere.
It absolutely is. In the seminar series, as I mentioned, 2022 will be the 35th anniversary for the seminar series, and we go to 8 different states across the country between January and March, and every area is different. You have different species, and therefore you have to compile faculty teams to cover the how-tos and where-tos of the different species. So even though we do 8 seminars, it's not the same seminar that we give in 8 locations. Every seminar city is tailored to the fishing in that region. And the seminar series was so popular because people really craved that how-to. So when I did the TV series, I took a bunch of that over to the television side and related more with the how-tos and teaching people a little bit more on the tricks to catch the different fish. It had been so popular with the seminar series, and continues to be, that I figured it would be an instant winner to incorporate some of that in a TV series, which we've done. And that's proven to be very, very successful with the TV series because we're coming on year 22 with the TV show. So it seems to be a winning combination.
So how long does it take you and your team to prepare for a seminar, for your national seminar for a particular state that you're going?
It is the tour itself. When we do 8 cities, it takes us about at least a good half a year to plan it. You've got to pick out the right venues, the big halls. You have to pick the dates where there's no other major conflicts going on. You have to design the courses that you want to teach that day. You need to figure out which faculty members will be best to join you that would do the best job to cover these. And once you get through all that, as I mentioned, every city that we go to is different. So all the seminar visuals have to be tailored to the city which we're going in. So then you have to organize all the visuals and put them together based on the species. And then, of course, you have to, book airfare, hotel accommodations, rental cars. You have to ship our production gear everywhere. It's a major undertaking. People show up for a Saturday at our seminar and enjoy themselves and think, hey, that's really great. But I don't really think they have any idea of all the long and hard work that really goes into that to make it what it is today.
Okay, so it's for this program that is only 1 hour show, and you need to read, you need to get ready for it. So I can imagine you the kind of work you have to do to make a national seminar like you're doing in front of hundreds of people. So
yeah,
so it's a great job. So George, I was looking at one interview of you, and you talked something about how everything started for that national seminar, and that it was like an embarrassment at first. So can you talk a little bit, because I find that's a good story with it. Because people think that everything is peaches and cream, and it's not. So talk a little bit about it.
Well, what gave birth to the National Seminar Series was every winter when the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show would come around, Saltwater Sportsmen would ask a couple of its writers. They asked Mark Sosin, they had asked me to put on a little clinic, because the boat show would call Saltwater Sportsmen and said, hey, could you send some of your writers down and have them do a clinic at the boat show? So we got roped into that because we were there representing the magazine. And it was the most embarrassing thing, because they would have bleachers by the concession stands. And then the show would announce, okay, we have Mark Sosin getting ready to do a half-hour seminar by the food court. Then George Poveromo will be doing a seminar by the food court. So we would go there, and you would have 4, 5, 6 people just sitting there listening to what you had to say. But then you'd look around, there'd be about 50, 60 other people sitting there. They could care less what you were talking about. They were there eating hot dogs, drinking beer, eating pizza. And this had gone on for 2 or 3 years, when Mark Sosa and I said, we need to call Saltwater Sportsmen and tell them this is an embarrassment to the magazine and us, that at a boat show, people are in a boat show frame of mind. That is, they're walking around looking at boats. They're not in the mode to sit for hours to hear a seminar. They're walking, drinking beer, checking boats out, and that's how they're geared. So Mark Sosa and I said, we need to put a seminar together where it'll be away from any boat show and make it a standalone seminar. So we worked with Saltwater Sportsmen, and we had produced the Saltwater Sportsman Seminar Series, which was an independent seminar that we took on the road to do 8 stops. And it was a hit right out of the box. But had it not been for us getting embarrassed by doing these seminars at the food court and watching more people eat than they're listening to us, the seminars would have never started. So we definitely got shamed into doing that.
That's a great story, because sometimes we're speaking in front of people, and it's like 1 or 2 people only, or less than 10, and you feel like, what am I doing this? So it's great to hear that kind of story, and that it's not easy as people think it is.
No, it isn't. And sometimes I think we're guilty of making things look too easy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your TV show.
Sure.
People could find it right now in what TV network, or where can they follow the show?
We air on the Discovery Channel. That's our big network. We air there on Sundays. We air first and second quarters, January through June. And then the show also gets picked up by the World Fishing Network, which is WFN. And then what I do for viewers who didn't catch it on Discovery or World Fishing Network, I put it on my YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, it's George Poveromo TV. So if they missed the show on the television, they could go to my YouTube channel, and we put the show over there as well, where they can watch it at any time. And so Discovery Channel, that's the big one now, that's doing all the TV shows, and very pleased to be over there. It's a great network. We have super good ratings, and like I said earlier, it's hard to believe that we're already shooting for year number 22 now with the television series. It's I kid around. I tell people we started the TV show as a high school science fair project and just got out of hand from there. But it's hard to believe we've been doing it that long.
But you have been able, as you talk about it, you have been able to see the transformation of the fishing business and the fishing and the recreational fishing demands. And you have been very successful at keeping your show throughout these years, 20 years. So how have you been able to evolve through all these years, and what's the most challenging part of sustaining your show through 22 years?
Well, I think it goes back, to the format. With that, we give a lot of good information. So many anglers, they relate to that of what we're doing. So that never gets old. And techniques change. You might be going after, say, yellowfin tuna. In one episode, you might be trolling for them in an area. So you're talking about the trolling tactics for yellowfins. You might do a show somewhere else where you're chunking or live baiting for yellowfins. So the techniques change a lot too. So it's not the same technique that you're rehashing for the species. A lot changes geographically. A lot changes with the techniques. There's a lot new innovations that come out over the years, and this all gets related into the program. And I'll give you a perfect example. 22 years ago, when we would live bait sailfish, an 80-pound monofilament leader was what a lot of the angling people used. And now today, and how you have fluorocarbon and how stealth-like you really need to be to fool a lot more fish. For live baiting sailfish today, we're using 40-pound fluorocarbon leaders, half the size of what we were using 20-some years ago. And so everything evolves. The techniques, the equipment evolves. It gets better. And again, the big thing is there's so much more pressure on our fish stocks because you have more people fishing today than we've ever had, with very sophisticated boats in a lot of cases, very sophisticated electronics that make it so much easier for people to locate fish. Way back when I was growing up, you had to really work and figure things out. You had a fish finder and all that, but you didn't have what we have today with radar that could look at birds, where depth sounders could easily read down 7,000-8,000 feet. It's a different world. And so all this is showcased in the show. The show evolves, as do the techniques. And I just think it just relates so well with the people that it has remained popular. And my sponsors, most of them have been with me from the very, very beginning. So, I'm a very loyal individual, and support my sponsors and showcase them in a very good way. And they appreciate it. And, we must be doing a good job for them because they've been with me this long. So everything's good. It just evolves,
Yeah, and talking about sponsors, you have been, when I see your name, I relate that to Mako, to the Mako boats.
Yes.
You have been always fishing in Mako boats. Is that true?
That is true. Well before I was even involved in the industry, growing up, my dad had boats. And when he wanted to upgrade, it was in 1977. And he wanted to get a 23-footer. And I kept saying, get a Mako. And he said, no, I want to get an Aquasport. You know, my friend's an Aquasport dealer. And I had argued. I said, I'll get a Mako. So I talked him into getting a 23-foot Mako in 1977. And every boat that he had owned after that was a Mako. We kept the Mako. And then I eventually got into the marine industry, and the Mako sponsored the seminar series. Mako jumped on and did my TV show. So realistically, you could say that I've been a Mako owner going back to 1977 to now, which is, if you think about that's pretty crazy to have, you know, my whole entire career in a Mako, and then before the career in a Mako. So that's you don't see that too often.
Yeah, that's big about loyalty. So
yes.
That's great. And you said in 1977 you have a 23-foot Mako, and for that year, a 23-foot Mako was a big boat.
It was, and it was my dad's boat. He bought it, and it had twin 115 horsepower outboards, and we thought that was like a drag racing car with that kind of horsepower back there. And we had, you know, a depth sounder that would, you know, would obviously show the bottom and the fish. And then it was Loran C was the navigation aid that you had back then, well before GPS. So there you had it. You had a fish finder, you had a Loran C, and you had twin 115 horsepower outboards. And that was an amazing setup for its time when he bought that boat. And he was showing me a number of years later how much that setup cost. So for the 23-foot Mako, 1977, with twin 115s, with the depth sounder, the trailer, and the Loran C unit in there, if I remember correctly, the whole total came to like $22,000, which was like a ridiculous amount of money back then. Now you can't buy the trailer for $22,000.
Yeah, you have to buy a 15-foot boat for that. And it's ridiculous, the prices that have gone through this roof of boats right now. And you keep looking at boats, center console boat, bigger and bigger. I think the biggest right now is a 65-foot center console. That's massive. So
it is unbelievable that how these big center consoles have evolved. And it's really mind-boggling, because if somebody told you 20 years ago that you would be seeing, you know, 600 horsepower outboards or 400 horsepower outboards and big center consoles, you know, you think that they landed from outer space or something. But it's amazing to see how these center consoles have really progressed. And you know, there's a need for it. You know, back in it, you know, you had the big sport boats that would run, say, up in Northeast to the canyons and go 90 miles, 100 miles, or down here, the big sports boats, they'd run into Bahamas or Gulf of Mexico, they'd run out to canyons and all, and, you know, long distances. But then you were in a big boat that was going 35 miles an hour, you know, 38 maybe. You were spending most of your time running to and from the fishing grounds. So then these fast center consoles had come to play, which made the run of these fishing grounds and back so fast that would give the person more fishing time when they were out there. Then plus, if somebody, say somebody owned a 55-foot big sport boat, and they sold that, and they bought a 30-foot center console or 40-some-foot center console, they don't need a full-time captain and crew to maintain that. The owner could grab his buddy. Two people could run out and fish that boat. It's a lot easier to fish than a large sport boat. So there are definite advantages to it. It's, you know, we're in a go fast society. Nobody has patience anymore. We all run out and be the first to the fish and fish longer and harder and, you know, race back to the dock. And it's a different game now.
Yeah, you're running a 33-foot Mako right now?
Yeah, the Mako 334. It's a 33-foot Mako, and a triple 400 horsepower Mercury Verados on the back.
Wow. So, and what's the biggest change you have seen through the years, and the most important piece of equipment in terms of fishing that you said this is a game changer, that this has been a game changer in the fishing industry?
Well, there's a number of things that would qualify for that. Is you have to look at our electronics that we have today with chirp enhanced transducers, which send out multiple signals, and when those signals are returned, it gives you greater target separation. In other words, you could see bait fish, you could see if there's a fish hanging close to it, you could see the bottom composite, what it's made out of, any nooks and cranny, just how accurate it is. It is amazing. And, you definitely have to give it to the sonar. We run Simrad on my boat, and look at the radars. Simrad has a radar, open array, and they have a feature called bird mode. When we would run radars before bird mode, we would fine tune the radar and play around with it to where we would be able to mark birds on it. It was a really big learning process. Then Simrad comes out with a bird mode so that you can push one button and the radar tunes itself to find birds. And you're seeing birds on the radar with no fine tuning, no learning curve, anything like that. So where it took us in a day, all that fine tuning, and you could explain somebody how to do that, but unless they were with you and you actually showed them, and then they actually had to play around with it themselves to get the hang of it, it was pretty tricky. Now you could take someone who has very little offshore experience, put them in a boat, give them the radar, have them push the bird mode button, and they could be able to find birds about as well as we can. So you talk, for them, that's a game changer. For us, it makes it a little bit more challenging because we got to figure out ways how we can beat them to the birds now, and that's with horsepower.
Yeah, it's incredible the technology that we have right now. There are people flying drones with cameras 1 or 2 miles ahead of the boat.
Yeah,
and looking at everything. So it's been, we never end learning from the technology.
It's never ending.
Yep. And you're talking back about your TV show. You started on ESPN,
Yes,
right?
Correct.
Okay. How did everything started there? How long were you on ESPN?
We had got picked up by ESPN a week after we sent the pilot to a couple national networks. They called us up and said, "Hey, we reviewed your pilot episode you sent up. We like it, and we have somebody dropping out of the 7 o'clock Sunday time slot. We'd be interested in talking to you about that." So we ended up flying up to Connecticut, which was the headquarters for ESPN, and we worked a deal, and we had gone to ESPN. And we were on ESPN for 10 years. And then ESPN decided that we're going to get out of the outdoor shows. So they're going to say no more hunting or fishing shows. So they waited till all the outdoor programs contracts ended on the same year. Then they told everybody we're going back to our roots. We're going to do no more fishing shows or whatever. So we were with ESPN for 10 years. So when they dropped all the shows, we got picked up by Versus, which later became NBC Sports Network. And we spent, 10 years or 9 or 10 years with them until the same thing happened when NBC Sports says, okay, we're getting away from all the outdoor shows. And they told all their fishing programmers that, we're not going to be doing any more shows, in the future. So when that happened, we got a call that Discovery was going to take the better fishing shows. So we were in negotiations there for about maybe a couple weeks, and then we got placed over on the Discovery Channel, which is a lot larger channel than the NBC Sports. So, how that worked out when NBC Sports got out of the outdoors, we got picked up over there by Discovery, which is an even larger network with more viewers. So we actually got a good balance on that one. And that's where we're at on Discovery. So they are the real big channel now that is still doing the fishing show. So we have a long-standing joke. I said, my show's been around so long, we just wear out networks,
But right now, you are, I think, at the best moment for the outdoors, because with this pandemic, people are going to the outdoors like never before. You couldn't find anything at the store, at the fishing store, because everything is gone. Boats are on high demand, new and old ones, so the prices are crazy. So this is the best time for the outdoors.
I've never seen it this crazy before. And you would think that when the pandemic came out and everything just really got tight, you think that the fishing industry would really get hit the hardest, because we're basically a recreational industry. And that's people when they have discretionary money. And you would think when things got tight that we'd be the entertainment dollar would be the first one to get cut and the last one to come back. But the weirdness of it all, when COVID came and you had social distancing, that it turned out that when I say we, the fishing boating arena was the perfect venue. People could take their families on the boats or their close friends, stay away from the crowds, go fish, go enjoy themselves on the water, and pretty much be safe with it all. So we gotten a shot in the arm like I've never seen it before in my industry. It got so crazy because people were jumping into boats and they're buying fishing stuff, and everybody's, boats are 7, 8, 9 months back ordered. You have, like you said, equipment selling so fast, hard to get the replacement tackle and equipment in. And from what I understand, I heard it's the same thing with the recreational RV industry with people going camping. They were experienced the same because there was another type of an industry where people could go social distance and get away from the crowds by camping or doing motorhomes and such. So my whole career has been in this marine industry, and we've seen the highs of it, we've seen the lows of it, but this had, without a doubt, the buying and the craziness has just been unreal. We're riding on a wave now that's so far, it's so high, you're gonna get a nosebleed. It's so high.
Yeah, COVID has taken the outdoor industry in general by surprise.
It did.
Yeah. Like you said, the boats are 8 to 10 months, maybe a year, until you get one, because there is no inventory right now. So I have friends that I don't know. I didn't know they like boats, and I have found that at the beach, and I said I didn't know. And they said, well, because of the COVID, I can travel, so I like to spend time with my family, so I'm getting into boats. But what they didn't know is that when you have a boat, you have to maintain that boat. And they always said they think that it's what just put some gas on the boat and get out. They didn't know the part about it, about maintenance and all that you need to do in a boat. So it's a learning process for everyone, but the fishing wise and outdoor industry is going crazy. I heard that the fishing license in Florida is like it has gone crazy, over 20 or 25% more than last year. So the pressure on the fishing industry is brutal.
That's and that's one of the downsides to it all. You have more people fishing with a lot of sophisticated equipment in many cases, and there's so much pressure on our fish stocks. And I try to avoid fishing on the weekend because of the crowd, so I'll try to fish during the week. And I will be in the Keys, and when all this was going on, like I would trailer to Key West, the end of the Florida Keys chain, during the weekday, and launch and look and see all these boats. And I'm thinking, what am I at? Am I at Miami on a weekend? Everywhere you look, weekdays or whatever, there are boats everywhere. And I think it's very important now to really stress the need for conservation. And, because these fish are getting hammered, and the need for conservation and trying to protect these fish and take only what you want for a couple of good meals and release the rest in good shape. I think it's crucial to sustain, our fisheries, because they're getting hammered now pretty good.
Yeah. You have been in the fishing industry for many years. How have you seen the the difference between fishing back in the 70s, 80s, and what's been like fishing today, regardless of the species and the environment?
Well, there's been, yes, I've seen it, and I'm happy to say that there's a lot of great success stories to where we are. You have to remember back in the 70s and all, there was a lot of fish had no limits, and a lot of people would just bail all the dolphin they wanted, bail all the kingfish they wanted, and a lot of those fish just got hammered, and the grouper snapper populations have been hammered. So I would say, in many cases, we are better now than we were back then. Yes, you may have had maybe more fish back in the day, but they got beat up rather quickly. And, look at the Goliath grouper, between divers spearing them and anglers catching them. And, they had to put a moratorium on their take to let them rebound. But one big thing that I had a good hand in was, back in the 70s, heck, you go look in the 80s, when South Florida sailfish tournaments, a lot of them were kill events back then, where you would catch the fish and bring them in, and they would have the big tournament weigh-ins and rack these fish up. And there was 3 big ones that had gone on in our area, South Florida. You had the Greater Miami Billfish Tournament. Then you had the Fort Lauderdale Billfish Tournament, and then a few weeks later, you had the Pompano Beach Fishing Rodeo. And in the day, all 3 of them, sailfish, were the big target item. And it was terrible because the 3 events would go over maybe a 6-week or so span, and there'd be 400 or 500 sailfish killed over that time span. And to the point where, hey, you can't be doing this. And fortunately, I was made the executive director of the Greater Miami Billfish Tournament back in 1984. And we had a board of directors that were really old school, kill 'em all type deals, as that was the period back then. And we would argue. And I lost the argument for 2 years, and it remained a kill tournament. And Daryl Lawrence from Lawrence Electronics was the big major sponsor of the Miami Billfish Tournament. I had known Daryl through these outdoor rider trips. He and I became very close, and he would send me, Lawrence equipment to test out before it actually came on the market, and he would fish the rider tournaments. We had a very good relationship to where we could talk to each other, one-on-one, like good friends. So I had called him up during our board of directors meeting. It was over the next day. I called Daryl. I said, Daryl, listen, I said, I know you're going to sign off to be a sponsor for this year's event, but I said, Daryl, you're a big conservationist. And I explained, I said, I need you to help me play, let's call their bluff. I need you to back me on this. And I said, I'm going to go to the next meeting and say that, hey, Daryl Lawrence said, unless we become a release tournament, he's not going to sponsor our event. Would you back me on that? He said, I'll back you, George. So we had gone to the meeting, the board of directors, and I said, hey, I have a major announcement. I was talking with Daryl Lawrence. He said he is not going to sponsor the Greater Miami Billfish Tournament unless we become a release event. And the board of directors, they were screaming, and there's no need to conserve sales. And I said, look, I don't want to get in the debate. I said, I have to call Daryl Lawrence 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock the next morning and let him know whether we're going to go release. And if so, he's going to back it. He was the major sponsor. That's where the money was coming from to really do that tournament. And I said, or I'm going to tell him that you're going to be a kill tournament, in which case, find another sponsor because we're done. So they hemmed and hawed. They agreed to do a release tournament to keep Daryl. So I called him up and said, thank you, Daryl. You helped me call their bluff. And because of you, the Miami Billfish Tournament had gone release. And because of the success of the Miami Billfish Tournament going release, it put the pressure on the Fort Lauderdale Billfish Tournament. They had to become all release. Then the Pompano Beach modified their format to pretty much exclude sailfish and only keep the fun fish. So because of that changed the face of South Florida sailfish tournaments because of the ploy that I did with Daryl Lawrence backing me. So when you see release tournaments, sailfish tournaments in South Florida, you have Daryl Lawrence to really thank for that opportunity.
That's a nice story because, and it's a welcome story because here in the island, we have been fighting for making a billfish billfish tournament all release. I think there are still 1 or 2 tournaments that are hanging the billfish when they get caught from some size up. I don't know if 400 or 500 up, and that's the females. So that for us is not good to see that. But for the tournament organization, they said that brings people to the tournament, and we put pressure on them, and we won for 1 year. That last 1 year, that every tournament, billfish tournament in Puerto Rico was all released. But when the next year they said we are going back to harvest 1 or 2 billfish, so people get to see them at the weigh station. I don't know the need for that, but we're still fighting for it. So it's nice to see. It's not easy.
Here's where that problem comes in, is because of the money, the Calcuttas and the side bets going on for the biggest, blue marlin or whatever. That's the issue you have, where they get forced to kill those fish. And as far as the trying to get people to get in at a tournament or to draw crowds to maybe the weigh-ins, you don't necessarily have to go in there and hang these fish up. You could throw a heck of a party, pop a squad rum, a band, let them talk to the anglers, and make it an event, a social event every afternoon in that tournament, where people come around and they just see the boats coming in, talking to the anglers. The fun fish will come in. They might throw up a dolphin, wahoo, or something like that, and you don't have to really bring these billfish in. And a lot of it is how it's marketed too. It's all about the mindset and marketing. And you just can't keep killing these big female fish. It's I know some tournaments say we put a high minimum weight, so only 3 or 4 fish may come in. And again, it's for the Calcuttas that they do that. But they should emphasize the release part of it all, and make that the big prestige of it all, and let these boats come in with flags. And there's so many different ways that you can market and push that. And it's the future. We're out there to preserve these stocks and keep them in sustainable levels for future generations. And it's just doing kill billfish tournaments, you're going against the grain, and it's not necessary. It's just have to figure a way around it, make it more festive, and figure out what other avenues that you could do these side bets and let people make their money.
Yeah, like you said, you are keeping stock healthy for the future generations. And no one wants to go out on a fishing day and not bring anything back. We are still recreational fishermen, and we like to fish. That's why we like to protect the environment and have healthy fishing stocks out there. So when you mention conservation, at least here, and I know back there also, people kind of see you on a negative way, maybe rejects. We feel rejected sometimes because we are being seen as the bad guys here, and people forget we love fishing. We love recreational fishing. We love to have a healthy environment. That's why we have been fighting against gill nets. I know you people back in Florida got rid of it a long time ago, but we are giving a fight here. And gill net is one of the worst type of fishing practice anywhere in the world that can be practiced, because it's totally unsustainable.
Gill nets and long lines are 2 of the most destructive fishings that we have. And I'll tell you a story. Again, I'm a Miami native. I grew up in Miami. And I remember as a kid, all the Spanish mackerel that would come in Biscayne Bay, you could set your watch for each winter. And then over the years, then the gill nets start coming in, and they're netting mackerel, or netting all these, the inshore species, especially to the north of me. were all being sucked up in these gill nets to the point where the Spanish mackerel hardly came in Biscayne Bay anymore. And all the bait was being netted out of there. And because all these baits were being netted, you didn't have many game fish laying up to feed on them. Our fishing really got bleak because of those gill nets. And because of an initiative that Florida Sportsman magazine put out, we were able to ban the gill nets in the state of Florida. And what a difference that made just a few years after those nets were banned to see the amount of bait that's coming in, the Spanish mackerel coming in Biscayne Bay, the redfish snook populations rebounding. It's amazing the destruction that those gill nets have done, especially, if they do them in the inshore, and it just wipes everything out.
Yeah, I got
here's something I've got to say. Very important to say, because I know that you have your people that don't like the conservation movement or whatever. You have to remember, in the world of saltwater sport fishing, Puerto Rico is a headliner. Anglers in Puerto Rico, you guys have in certain fisheries, a world-class fishery, particularly with blue marlin. A lot of Puerto Rican anglers are amazing with the techniques and tactics that they develop. The big game world looks at Puerto Rico as a leader, and therefore I think Puerto Rico should really represent itself as a leader, and that also means in the area of conservation. You're a major player in the world of recreational saltwater fishing, and so I felt that I had to say that. To make sure that you keep pushing that conservation measure and really get up on top of things.
Oh yeah, we're giving a fight, but it's not easy, with that of the gill nets that you get rid of it, I was able to see the famous mullet run that happens in Florida, and I have to tell you, I have never seen that many snooks in my life. Everywhere there were snooks everywhere, and the mullets run was incredible. So as you were telling us, the bait fish is crazy, and I think a major part is getting rid of gill nets.
There's no doubt about it. And going back to the original conversation that we were talking about, when you had asked me how it was in the early years and compared to now, and I said there's a lot of success stories. And the reason that we see a lot of success stories today is because of the conservation measures that we put on our certain fish. We have closed season when all the snook are spawning. You can't take them. You can catch and release, but no take. We close down a grouper now during their peak spawning period. Let them come in and spawn. And by us closing some of these fish during the key spawning period to no take, and also having sensible bag limits and sensible size limits, we were able to manage these stocks in some cases, very well. There's still some areas that need a lot of adjustment, but because of the measures that we have in place, a lot of our fish stocks are better off now than when they were just getting beat to heck back in the early mid 70s. And so a lot of good success stories out there because of that. And I'll give you one sleeper of an issue that threatens not only the fisheries, but it's been taking place here in our reefs, is the amount of bad water pollution that we're fighting in Florida. And it's hard for me to get my head around it, with Florida being such a big tourism-driven state. People are here for the beach, here to fish, that the amount of pollutants that come out of Lake Okeechobee, that come from our local waterways, that end up being sucked out with the tides onto our reefs, killing the reefs, which are already in bad shape. And again, you're killing a lot of the environment. I grew up fishing in Biscayne Bay for sea trout, when North Biscayne Bay had plenty of grasses to catch trout. Now up in North Biscayne Bay, all those grasses are just mud. And a lot of that is because of all the fertilizer and weed killers that people are spraying on their lawns. It rains, it gets washed into the water. All these weed killers they spray in the freshwater canals to kill the weeds. Well, those freshwater canals empty into the bay, And it has taken its toll. The grasses are gone in North Biscayne Bay, but a lot of bay fish thrive there, and when they don't thrive there, you don't have the fish, and that a lot of that dirty water runs out and has been impacting our reefs for decades. So I think now we stay on top of our fisheries conservation, but people need to start looking super heavily on what it's going to take to clean up Florida's water conditions, because we have a serious issue with water quality in our state, and it doesn't seem that anything is really getting done. And so,
yeah, indeed, and it's incredible. I have seen the pictures, and I've been following what's happening in Florida, and it's incredible that you guys are, I think, the capital of the U.S. in terms of fishing inshore, offshore, and it's killing everything. The green waters that comes from Lake Okeechobee, and wow, and how the Everglades have been almost wiped out. The function that they were supposed to do has been changed by the human being, and they are trying to get it back to original, but it will take a lot of money and a lot of guts to bring it back.
Yeah, and I don't know really how hard they're really trying to get it back to normal. There's a lot of talk, and you do have certain groups that are really hardcore to get it back to normal. But as far as the support, that let's see how time plays out on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know we will make a lot of laws, a lot of bans and everything, and closures and everything. I'm tired about it. I was part of NOAA Caribbean Fishing Management. I was chairman there, and also from the local Department of Natural Resources. We could make 100 laws, but if you don't bring education and if you don't bring enforcement together, it's like writing in a book for no one to see it, because no one is gonna follow it. So we need education and enforcement, and that's the biggest issue here.
I agree.
Yeah. And George, getting back to your program, I saw a program that is called The Incident. It was a pretty unique program. Tell people more about it.
Sure. You, when you say it was a unique program, you should have seen it from my perspective. And what it was, and I ran it in that show because it goes to show you sometimes that by not following the safety procedures, some of us have done this for so long that we think we're so experienced that we don't really need to follow certain safety protocols, because accidents always happen to other people. And this particular trip, I was the other person. We were fighting the swordfish, and how it started off, we ran right out off Isla Mirada, was with Nick Stanzik doing a show. We dropped down, immediately hook up. I fight a swordfish for over an hour. Got it near the boat, looked to be about a 250, 300-pound fish. The hook pulled. Oh, because we saw the fish. And so we go back, we drop again. Immediately hook up. I fight another fish for over an hour again. We get that near the boat. It's the same size fish. The hook's pulled. So now we go back and we hook up immediately the third time. So now I'm fighting this particular fish for about 2 hours. And we're finally getting it somewhat near the boat. And the camera boat was coming in between me and the fish. And I said, don't come in here. We already lost 2 fish. You're going to run over the line. I said, go around me. Come in off my bow. And you'll be able to shoot there because the fish is off my stern more. So they did that. And the boat was idling around. And by dumb luck, just as I was going down to take a turn on my reel handle, the camera boat weight hit the side of my boat, knocked my feet in the air. I was strapped to the swordfish. I had gone overboard with the swordfish. And we were going down. And I remember, because I grew up, my makers do all know offshore fishing and stand up. And you knew sooner or later you might run into a situation. So I had a release plan formulated in my head that if this ever happened, the first thing you do is slowly back the drag off to alleviate the pressure. Most people would freak and not do anything, and that fish would drag you down, or they would go instantly in a free spool, bird nest the reel would lock up, and the fish would still pull you down. I was going down. So I remember step one, slowly back to drag off, which I did, and I was able to bounce back to the surface. The second part of the deal was to grab my rod, pull it to my chest, and unclip out of my harness and swim free. I went to do that, but I can't find my rod. And I know the rod is there somewhere, but one of the camera men from my boat saw that I was having a struggle with that. He jumped over and swam to me. The rod was pulled down between my legs, and the reel was turned around against my stomach. So I'm reaching out, I can't get to it. He got his hand under that reel and unclipped me. So I got out of the harness. We passed the rod back up to Nick in the boat. He put it in the rod holder. And I said, advance the drag. Is that fish still there? And he did. The fish was still there. I got back in the boat and got back on that fish, fought it for another half hour. And we finally got it. It was a 256-pound swordfish. But where I had gone wrong, and I left this in the show, Nick said, you want to put your restraint cord on the back of your fighting harness, which connects to the boat. So if you had gone over, somebody gone over, you had the rope, somebody could hold you or pull you back. I said, no, I don't need that. And that's where I made the mistake, because we thought, because all the years we have in the water, we're better than that. That's for like beginners. And that could have cost me my life. And to this day, when I get in there, I'll put that restraint from these swordfish back to the harness, back to some place in the boat. And the other thing, the third part, which I never got to in my escape routine, was to get a pair of pliers and cut the line. But when I was trying to reach for my pliers, it was under my harness. I couldn't get to them. So now I got the cutoffs strapped to me in a couple of different positions. I'm on my cord the way it should be. And I was very lucky that nothing really bad happened. Is one of the, I was mad at myself for letting that happen. I was mad at myself for 6-7 months. And then the camera guys are telling me, you don't know how close you came to getting killed. And I said, no, it's just stupidity on my part. And it's just, and the camera guy told me this. He said, when that rod is between your legs, George, you're lucky that the line didn't wrap around the rod tip, or the line didn't wrap around your foot, because you would have been completely pulled down with a swordfish. And when I thought about that, I said, he was right on that. So when you stop and think, it was a closer call than I had given it credit for. But it's why we called it the incident. That was a wild one.
Yeah, and it brings some positive things about it. The escape plan. Everyone should have an escape plan before going out fishing, because you don't know what's going to happen in going out fishing. So that's very important. And I have seen you mad in 2 programs. One was the one that I remember most is that you were fishing with one of your buddies, and he threw you a bucket of water.
And he was,
when you were fighting a fish. You were mad as hell.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. But that's what's cool about your program, because it's something that you don't edit that part. You keep rolling on. So.
Well, you'll appreciate this, and the big game anglers of Puerto Rico will certainly appreciate this. And that story, or that show, I was with my good friend Harry Vernon, and he is a prankster, and we have fun with each other in the boat. Well, we were at Cape Palooza on my boat, and we were trolling, and I hooked up a blue, and I'm fighting a blue on stand-up 50. And when you hook up to a marlin, you know that you get in that certain spot, that certain zone. It's you 100% focused on the marlin. You tune everything else out around you, and you're concentrating on feeling and fighting this fish. So we're getting the fish closer, and then I told Harry, I said, Harry, grab me a bottle of water. I need to take a quick drink. Okay. He gets a bottle of cold water to the cooler and dumps it on the back of my neck and put me in like a shock. And it broke my focus. So, I had to be careful what I really said to him, since we were on TV. But when the cameras were off, I wished him a Merry Christmas.
But that was cool. The cool thing about your program, we get to see you as you are. So
what
we enjoy it.
What was the second time you saw me, man?
I don't remember very well the second one, but that one it is sticking to my head.
Yeah, that one, it was like 90 degrees out there, and
Yeah.
I'm sweating and fighting the marlin, and we're getting close. I'm so into the fight. All of a sudden, that ice cold water put me into a shock.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. But we still got the marlin.
Oh yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah, it is.
So George, we're getting close to end this interview. What's the biggest piece of advisement that you could give to all those people that are starting in the fishing sport?
I think that the best advice I could give is to respect the sport. We have a magnificent sport. It's a very special sport that we don't have a super abundant, forever lasting fish stocks. When you come into the game, remember sport fishing. You're out there. It's a lot cheaper. If you want to eat fish, you don't buy a boat. It's a lot easier to go to the fish market and cheaper compared to what you spend on a fishing trip. Go out, enjoy yourself, have fun. It's not wrong to take a few fish in to have some fresh meals. It's okay to take a fish every now and then, but release the billfish. Only take enough fish where you can have some nice fresh meals. Don't stockpile a freezer. Come out, enjoy our sport, respect it, and have a great time with it. And make sure that you leave this for future generations to enjoy like you do. So it's all about respect.
Great message, George. And have you fished in Puerto Rico before?
Yes, I have. I fished in Puerto Rico with the legend Mike Benitez.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
This was way before my TV show. I had just come aboard with Saltwater Sportsman. And I talked to Magazine and let me go down to Puerto Rico. I met Mike at a boat show, and he says, come on down, let's go fishing. So I had come down there, and he had gone down, and we fished. I think we got 3 blue marlin. We did a story for Saltwater Sportsman, and this had been back in the early 80s, mid 80s. But yes, I did. I had gone down, fished Puerto Rico, and like I said, you've got a world-class fishery. You have some world-class anglers in there, and just respect your fishery there too. It's rather magnificent, and I'm hoping one day, since Mako's my boat sponsor, we got to figure out how to ship my Mako down there, or me fly down and jump on a Mako and do a show out of Puerto Rico. I think that would be pretty cool.
I have some friends with Mako boats here, so you have an open invitation to go wherever you want and come fish with us. So, and hopefully, and we're starting to talk about making the National Saltwater Seminar in Puerto Rico for maybe next year or 2023.
Well, when we spoke at the boat show, I've always toyed with that idea of bringing a special stop in the Saltwater Sports and Seminar Series to Puerto Rico. And we got to really put our heads together and make that happen. I think it would be one heck of a seminar down there.
Yeah, so count with us. We are 100% backing up, and hopefully we'll see you soon in Puerto Rico. People could follow you through Saltwater Sportsman Magazine. Yeah, I enjoy a lot reading your tactics and tackle in the magazine that you have. You write every month here. So
yes, the monthly column in Saltwater Sportsman, Tactics and Tackle, and they can read me through Saltwater Sportsman. And as I mentioned, if they want to watch our TV shows, we also post them on YouTube. If they can go to YouTube and go to George Poveromo TV, watch our episodes there. And then again, if they go to my website, georgepoveromo.com, they'll see our television schedule. They'll see a bunch of how-to features from everything on how we have my boat set up for fishing. There's a lot of good information over there, and it's so a lot of ways you could find me.
So thank you very much, George. We are very grateful to have been able to make this interview. For me, it was very important, and since you are a legend in the sport, I grew up watching your show, so for me it was an honor to have you here, and hopefully we'll see you soon in Puerto Rico, maybe in one of our Pesca Playa Ambiente activities or conservation activities with the seminar or something like that. So from all of us, thank you, George. It's been amazing interview.
It's been a very big honor, for me to be part of this, and I appreciate you having me on. And all the best to everybody in Puerto Rico, and keep up the good fishing.
Thank you, George, and let's make it happen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Ahí está Israel Unpiel, espectacular de entrevista, de verdad que sí. Cuéntame, ¿cómo te la disfrutaste?
Me encantó la entrevista que pudimos hacerle a George. Pues, muchas anécdotas que no conocíamos de él. Está en lo de conservación del ambiente, que eso es bueno saberlo y es bueno que la gente sepa el mensaje que le dio a todos, que conservación es parte importante de la pesca y que todos debemos estar pendientes a la conservación. No es que no seamos pescadores, pero seamos pescadores conscientes de lo que vamos a pescar y no llevarnos de más, como bien él dice. Además, pues esperamos tenerlo pronto en Puerto Rico. Ya estamos en conversaciones a ver si podemos lograr traer su seminario de pesca a la isla y que la gente disfrute y aprenda, que es lo más importante de una leyenda como George, que lleva 22 años en la televisión, llevándonos sus programas y su pesca. Así que esperamos pronto, pues, como dijimos, tenerlo en Puerto Rico. Así que pendientes. Vamos a continuar con esto.
¿Y qué está pasando? ¿Qué va a estar pasando por ahí? ¿Hay algunas entrevistas por ahí?
Sí, tenemos más entrevistas. Tenemos pronto, volvemos al español pronto. Así que sí, porque pues, no es fácil. La gente se cree que esto es abrir el micrófono y las cámaras y empezar, pero no es fácil. Uno no habla el inglés todos los días, así que pues a veces tenemos un poquito de dificultad, pero seguimos para adelante. Sí. Así que lo importante es hacer el programa.
Yo creo que los 3 o los 4, ¿verdad? Porque hemos tenido muchos compromisos, ¿verdad? Al mismo tiempo, y por eso hemos estado un poquito apartados, pero estamos bien pendientes a todo lo que está sucediendo.
Sí, y venimos con entrevistas de calidad para mantener esto importante. Ricky, quería hablarte también de nuestro sponsor AFCO. AFCO tiene pues grandes productos, entre ellos queremos, ya que George está hablando del fluorocarbono, que es aquí tenemos el nuevo producto de AFCO, que es fluorocarbono. Es una línea bien fina, bien sensitiva y pues extremadamente resistente. Para aquellos que practican el deporte de la pesca de jigging, esta es una de las mejores líneas que pueden conseguir. Es de la marca AFCO, así que la pueden conseguir en una de las tiendas cercanas o mandarla a pedir, pero la tenemos, tremenda línea, la hemos usado y muy buena. Así que tremendo producto de AFCO. Además, Ricky, pues estamos pendientes a ver con qué venimos en la vela también.
Seguro que sí, la vela y el surf con el gran Graham Castillo, que está por ahí ya cocinando unas cositas bien interesantes con el surf, así que yo sé que eso te gusta a ti.
Sí, también. Y disfrutamos mucho de las aventuras de Graham.
Eso es así. Bueno, y saluditos a todos los que estuvieron por ahí en las redes. Raniel Arrentas.
Vimos a Raniel que estuvo por ahí. Raniel está en Miami allá vendiendo botes y nos puso por ahí que los botes están tardando casi 1 año y medio en salir un bote nuevo. Así que lo que hablamos ahorita está brutal. La venta de los botes y de los productos outdoor está por las nubes, de verdad. Y ha cogido a todos por sorpresa.
Te lo digo yo que sabes que trabajo en un warehouse que eso lo distribuye a...
Sí, no hay productos.
Las tiendas, ¿verdad? Productos marinos, que trabajo en Kellogg Marine Supply y eso está de loco. Así que ya tú sabes.
Así que, pues, nada, agradecemos a la sintonía de todos. Continúen pendientes que venimos con buenas entrevistas y nos pueden hacer llegar sus preguntas o sugerencias de entrevistas a nuestra página de Pesca Playa Ambiente, a Hotmail, pescaplayaambiente@hotmail.com, o comunicarse con nosotros o con alguno de los muchachos del programa, Contra Viento y Marea, para pues, nosotros tratar de conseguir esa entrevista que a ustedes tanto les gusta. Así que muchas gracias.
Así que,
y gracias, Ricky. Saludos a Carlos, a Graham. Estamos pendientes para las próximas entrevistas por ahí. Así que pendientes. Esto fue un programa un sábado. No estaba calendarizado para sábado, pero había que hacerlo. De verdad que había que hacerlo y tremendo programa. Espero que lo hayan disfrutado.
1.000.000 de gracias a todos y no olviden seguirnos en nuestras redes Adrenalina Náutica, Pesca, Playa y Ambiente, el Club Brisa y Vela Nativa de Puerto Rico. Así que será hasta la próxima. Bien pendientes por ahí para ver qué es lo que traemos en Contraviento y Marea, tu webcast.
Gracias a todos y nos siguen en Pesca, Playa y Ambiente. Buenas noches a todos.